They made the woman in a wheelchair wash cars every day. But a stranger saw and changed everything. Jessica felt tears mixing with the soapy water as she scrubbed the side of the silver car. Her arms trembled from exhaustion, but she couldn't. "Stop. You missed this part down here," shouted Aunt Deborah from the porch. "And do it well, there are 3 more cars to wash today." The 23-year-old maneuvered her wheelchair to reach the lower part of the vehicle. It had been 6 months since her aunt and cousin Tyler had brought her to live with them in Portland, promising to care for her after the accident that took her mobility. What began as gratitude soon turned into a nightmare. "Jessica." Tyler appeared at the gate with his mud-covered car. "Just got back from the farm. I need it clean in an hour. I have plans." She looked at her hands, already raw from the rough sponge. Since arriving, she had become the family's unofficial car washer, and for all the neighbors her aunt charged for the service. The money, of course, never reached Jessica's hands. Across the street, Michael watched the scene for the 3rd day in a row. As a freelance journalist, he had developed an instinct for stories that needed to be told. Something was deeply wrong with this situation. He discreetly pulled out his phone and began recording. The young woman in the wheelchair moved with obvious difficulty. Her face twisted in pain as she tried to reach spots that were nearly impossible for someone in her condition. "Aunt Deborah, my back is really hurting today." Jessica tried to argue once Tyler left. "Pain? You want to talk about pain?" Aunt Deborah stomped down the steps. "I'm the one in pain, having to support you, giving you a roof and food. The least you can do is help with the household expenses. But you keep all the money." "Excuse me?" The woman's face turned red. "You think I spend nothing on you? The wheelchair we fixed? The ramp my husband built? Ungrateful." Jessica lowered her head. It was true they had made some adjustments, but nothing that justified months of forced labor. She received a small disability pension, but Aunt Deborah took it all, claiming it was for her expenses. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. Michael put away his phone, disturbed. He needed to know more before acting. He crossed the street casually, pretending to be interested in washing his own car. "Good afternoon," he greeted Aunt Deborah. "The young lady does good work. How much do you charge?" The woman's eyes gleamed with greed. $50. For a full wash, $60 with waxing." "Sounds fair. Can I schedule it for tomorrow?" As they spoke, Michael glanced at Jessica from the corner of his eye. She looked exhausted, leaning on her wheelchair as if she might collapse at any moment. When their eyes briefly met, he saw something that unsettled him even more: complete resignation. The next day, Michael returned with his car. Jessica was already set up with buckets and sponges, even under the scorching midday sun. "Hi," he said gently when Aunt Deborah went inside. "What's your name?" Jessica hesitated, unused to being treated like a person. "Jessica," she answered softly. "Nice to meet you, Jessica. I'm Michael. Listen, no need to rush. Actually," he glanced around to make sure they were alone. "Are you okay?" The simple question nearly made her cry. How long had it been since anyone cared about her well-being? "I'm fine, sir. Should I start with the hood?" "Jessica," Michael crouched to be at her eye level. "I know you don't know me, but I've seen you here every day. This isn't right." "Please," she whispered, frightened. "Don't make trouble. They're my only family. Family doesn't treat each other like this." "You don't understand," Jessica interrupted, tears streaming down her face. "I have nowhere to go. My parents died in the same accident that left me like this. Aunt Deborah is my mother's sister. She and Tyler are all I have." Michael felt his chest tighten. The situation was even worse than he'd imagined. "What about your rights? Benefits? You're entitled to special care." "She takes everything. Says it's for my expenses, but..." Jessica looked down at her calloused hands. "I know it's not. I tried to complain once, and she threatened to put me in a public shelter." "Jessica!" Aunt Deborah's shrill voice cut through the air. "Stop chatting and get back to work. This young man doesn't have all day." Michael stood up, forcing a smile. "I was just asking about the service. She's very professional." Aunt Deborah narrowed her eyes, suspicious, but went back inside. Michael stayed there, watching Jessica work, his phone discreetly recording every moment of her suffering. Over the next week, Michael returned several times, always with different excuses. Sometimes his car was dirty again, other times he just wanted a touch-up. He paid generously, hoping at least some of the money would reach Jessica, but he knew it wasn't happening. During one visit, he found Jessica silently crying as she tried to reach the roof of a van. "Hey," he approached. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," she sniffled. "It's just, today's the 1-year anniversary of the accident. They don't even remember." Michael felt a wave of anger. He took the sponge from her hands. "Let me finish this." "No," Jessica panicked. "If she sees, she'll be furious. Please." "Then tell me," he handed the sponge back, "about your parents. What were they like?" As she worked, Jessica talked about her father, a teacher, and her mother, a nurse, about her plans to study physical therapy, ironically, about the rainy night when a truck swerved into their lane. "I was the only one in the back seat," she murmured. "Sometimes I think it would have been better if—" "No," Michael cut in firmly. "Don't say that. You survived for a reason. To wash cars for the rest of my life." She laughed bitterly. "No. And that's what we're going to change." Jessica stared at him, equal parts scared and hopeful. "I can't. You don't know my aunt. She can be difficult." As if summoned, Aunt Deborah appeared at the door. "Jessica, Mrs. Williamson, called. She wants her car washed today. And then there's Mr. Thompson's. Hurry up with that one." "Mom," Michael stepped forward. "She looks exhausted. How about giving her a break today?" Aunt Deborah's face twisted with barely hidden rage. "A break? You paying the bills here? You know how much it costs to keep an invalid at home?" "Auntie," Jessica exclaimed, mortified. "It's true you think it's easy? Wheelchair, medicine, special food, it all costs money. And you, sticking your nose in my business." Michael controlled his anger. "Of course, Ma'am, sorry for intruding." But as he walked away, his mind was already working. He had enough footage, hours of video showing the abuse, but he needed more. He needed concrete proof about the theft of Jessica's benefits. That night, Michael reviewed the recordings. Jessica's weary face, Aunt Deborah's harsh orders, the endless cars. As a journalist, he'd covered plenty of sad stories, but this one struck him deeply. The next day, he changed tactics. He arrived early before Jessica started working. "Aunt Deborah, can I speak with you?" The woman eyed him suspiciously in the cramped living room. "What do you want?" "It's about Jessica. I've noticed she's very talented. I'm thinking of hiring her for my company." Deborah's eyes widened. "Hire her? But she lives here. She can't leave. It'd be part-time. I'd pick her up and drop her off, and of course I'd pay well." "How much?" Michael named a considerable sum. He watched greed and fear battle on the woman's face. "I don't know. Jessica is like a daughter to me. It would be hard to be without her. I understand, but think about her future. She can't wash cars forever." "She enjoys it," Deborah raised her voice. "It's therapeutic for her." "Therapeutic," Michael repeated, struggling to stay calm. "Right. Well, think about my proposal." He left more certain than ever that he needed to act. But how? Reporting it would be easy, but then what? Would Jessica be left helpless? He decided to seek professional help. Mr. Johnson, a lawyer friend, listened to the whole story with growing outrage. "This is akin to slave labor," he said firmly, "and misappropriation of benefits. These are serious crimes. But she has nowhere to go if we report her aunt. There are specialized shelters, support programs. She's afraid of that. She's been threatened." Mr. Johnson thought for a moment. "We need concrete proof of the misused benefits. Bank statements, documents. How do we get that?" "Leave it to me. I have contacts at the Social Security office." "But Michael, are you sure you want to get involved? This could get messy." Michael thought of Jessica, her tired but still young face, her shattered dreams. "I'm sure." While Mr. Johnson investigated, Michael kept visiting. One day he arrived to find Jessica being harshly scolded by Tyler. "3 cars in 5 hours, that's all?" he shouted. "You're slacking off." "Tyler, please, my back." Your back, always complaining. You think I don't have problems?" Michael recorded everything, his heart heavy. When Tyler stormed off, he approached Jessica. who was crying silently. "He's right," she murmured. "I'm a burden to everyone." "That's not true. Jessica, listen to me." Michael gently held her bruised hands. "You're worth so much more than this. You deserve dignity, respect, a real life." "You don't know. Someone like me," she pulled her hands away. "Without my legs, I'm nothing. You're everything. You're strong, resilient. You survived a tragedy and you're still here fighting." "Fighting?" Jessica laughed bitterly. "I gave up a long time ago." "Then let me fight for you." She looked at him surprised. "Why? Why do you care?" Michael didn't have an immediate answer. Why indeed? Maybe because he recognized in her something he'd once felt, the sense of being trapped with no way out. Or maybe because he simply couldn't stand injustice without acting. "Because it's the right thing to do," he finally said. Just then, Aunt Deborah appeared. "Talking again? Jessica, you have work to do, and you, sir, if you're not here to wash a car today, please leave." "Actually," Michael stood up, "I came to make that proposal again about hiring Jessica." "I already said no." Deborah's face turned red. "She's not leaving here. Why not let her decide?" "Because I'm responsible for her. I take care of her. I decide. Jessica is an adult." "Jessica is incapable," Deborah exploded. "Look at her. She can't even walk. How is she supposed to work?" The silence that followed was crushing. Jessica shrank in her chair, her aunt's words like knives. "Get off my property," Deborah hissed, "and don't come back." Michael left, but he didn't go far. From his car, he called Mr. Johnson. "I got the statements. You were right. Jessica's benefit, about $2,000 a month, is deposited into an account under her aunt's name. There are regular withdrawals, no proof of significant medical expenses. Is that enough evidence?" "To start, yes, but Michael, I found out more. Jessica is entitled to an insurance payout from her parents' car accident, a substantial amount. Guess who's trying to access it as her guardian?" Michael's blood boiled. "We need to get her out of there." "Easy, we'll do this the right way. First, we go to the district attorney's office. With your videos and the documents, we can get a protective order." "How long?" "A few days, maybe a week." Michael looked at the house where Jessica kept working under the sun. A week felt like an eternity. In the following days, even though he was forbidden to approach, Michael kept watch from afar. He saw Jessica looking increasingly worn out, with cars piling up. One particularly hot morning, he watched her faint while washing a pickup truck. He couldn't hold back. He ran to her, ignoring Aunt Deborah's shouts. "Jessica, Jessica, wake up." She opened her eyes, disoriented. "Michael, you shouldn't... She'll... Enough!" Michael stood up, staring at Aunt Deborah as she came running. "No more abuse. I called an ambulance. You have no right. Get out of here before I call the police." "Go ahead." Michael was furious. "While you're at it, explain to them about the forced labor, about stealing her benefits." Aunt Deborah turned pale. "You don't know anything." "I know everything. I have proof. Videos, documents, bank statements." The ambulance arrived, cutting the argument short. The paramedics examined Jessica, finding severe dehydration and exhaustion. "She needs to be hospitalized," one of them said. "No," Aunt Deborah tried to interfere. "She's fine, she just needs rest. Ma'am, she's in serious condition. We're taking her." Michael accompanied Jessica to the ambulance. Before the doors closed, she grabbed his hand. "Thank you," she whispered. At the hospital, while Jessica received IV fluids and care, Michael called Mr. Johnson. "It's time." "She's safe at the hospital. We need to act before her aunt tries to take her away. I'm heading to the district attorney's office right now. Meet me there in an hour." Michael spent the next hours between the hospital and the courthouse. Jessica slept, finally at peace. Mr. Johnson obtained a restraining order preventing Aunt Deborah from approaching her and ordered an investigation into the mistreatment. When Jessica woke up, Michael was by her side. "Hi," she murmured. "Where am I?" "At the hospital. You're safe. My aunt can't hurt you anymore. We got a court order." Jessica's eyes widened. "What? But I have nowhere to go." "We'll figure it out, one step at a time. Right now, you need to recover." "Michael," tears streamed down her face. "Why are you doing this?" He gently squeezed her hand. "Because you deserve to live, not just survive." In the days that followed, a lot happened. Jessica's story, shared by Michael on his professional networks, caused an uproar. Offers of help poured in from all sides. Volunteer lawyers, physical therapists, even a spot in a wheelchair-accessible shared house. But Aunt Deborah wouldn't give up easily. She showed up at the hospital with Tyler, pretending maternal concern. "Jess," she whined, "what a terrible misunderstanding. I came to take you home." "She's not going anywhere with you," Michael stepped in. "Who are you to decide?" Tyler moved forward threateningly. "Are you family or something?" "No, but the district attorney's office is the law." Mr. Johnson entered the room. "And you're violating a court order by being here." "This is ridiculous," Deborah shouted. "I took care of her for months, gave her a home, food, and took her money," Mr. Johnson calmly countered. "We have all the proof. I suggest you leave before I call security." "Jessica," Deborah tried one last plea. "After all I've done for you, your mother would be disappointed." Jessica, who had been quiet until then, lifted her head. "My mother would be disappointed in you. Using her daughter as a slave, how dare you?" "It's the truth," Jessica continued, her voice growing stronger. "You treated me like an object, a tool, never like family." Tyler pulled his mother away. "Let's go. When she's on the streets, she'll beg to come back." After they left, Jessica broke down in tears. Michael and Mr. Johnson comforted her. "You were very brave," the lawyer said. "Now we'll take care of your future. First, getting your benefits and insurance back." "I don't want to." "Cause trouble." "They caused the trouble," Michael interrupted. "You're only reclaiming what's rightfully yours." Jessica's recovery was slow, not just physically but emotionally. Years of abuse leave deep scars. The volunteer physical therapist Dr. Palmer was shocked by the state of her muscles. "You pushed your body too hard," she explained. "We need to rebuild your strength from scratch. Will I get better?" "With work and dedication, yes. But Jessica, you need to understand one thing. Your worth isn't measured by how much you can work." It was a hard lesson to learn. Jessica had spent so long hearing she was a burden, that she only mattered if she was productive, that accepting care without giving anything in return felt wrong. Michael visited her daily. He brought books and they talked about her dream of studying physical therapy. "Can I still do it?" she asked one day. "Even like this?" "Especially like this," Michael smiled. "Imagine how many patients you could inspire with your story." But the road wouldn't be easy. Aunt Deborah, furious at losing her source of income, began spreading lies around the neighborhood. She claimed Jessica was ungrateful, that she'd been manipulated by a stranger with selfish motives. Some neighbors who had benefited from Jessica's cheap labor supported Deborah. They started pressuring her, saying Michael had ulterior motives, that he was taking advantage of a vulnerable young woman. "Maybe they're right," Jessica told Michael one day, shaken by the rumors. "Why would anyone do so much without wanting anything in return?" Michael sighed. He sometimes questioned the intensity of his involvement himself. Was it professional, personal, something more? "Jessica, if you want me to step back, I understand. I just want you to know my only intention has ever been to help." "No," she grabbed his hand. "I'm sorry, it's just... I'm not. I used to kindness without a price. Not all kindness has a price. Sometimes people help because it's the right thing to do. But the troubles were only beginning." Aunt Deborah hired a lawyer and filed a lawsuit, claiming defamation and demanding compensation for the care she provided to Jessica. "It's ridiculous," Mr. Johnson explained. "But we'll have to respond. She's trying to scare you. What if she wins?" Jessica was terrified. "She won't. We have too much evidence against her." "But Jessica, you need to be prepared. You'll have to testify." The thought of facing her aunt in court was terrifying. Jessica had panic attacks just thinking about it. "I don't know if I can," she confessed to Michael. "You can. You're stronger than you think." "Strong," she laughed bitterly. "I let them treat me like trash for months. You survived. That's strength." Dr. Palmer, the physical therapist, also noticed the emotional toll on Jessica. "I suggest psychological support," she said. "The trauma isn't just in your body." That's how Jessica met Dr. Anderson, a psychologist specializing in abuse victims. The first sessions were hard. Jessica could barely speak without crying. "It's normal to feel guilt, Doctor," Anderson explained. "Victims often blame themselves, but nothing that happened was your fault." Meanwhile, the adapted group home had an opening. Michael and some volunteers took her to see it. "It's perfect." The coordinator, Brian, also a wheelchair user, showed her the facilities. "Everything's adapted, and we have a van that takes residents to college." "College," Jessica repeated, as if it were a distant dream. "Of course, we have several students here. You'll fit right in." But moving meant leaving behind the little she knew. Even if it was a painful past, it was familiar. "What if it doesn't work out?" she asked Michael on the way back. "Then you try something else. That's life, Jessica. Trying. Easy to say when you have legs." Michael stopped the car. "I'm sorry," Jessica murmured. "That wasn't fair." "No, you're right. I don't know what it's like. But I know you're capable of so much more than you think." The move was scheduled for 2 weeks later. Jessica would be discharged from the hospital and would go straight to the group home. It seemed like things were finally getting better. Then one morning, Michael received a frantic call from Jessica. "They're here," she whispered in panic. "Who?" "Tyler and 2 men. They say they have an order to take me." Michael rushed to the hospital, calling Mr. Johnson on the way. He arrived to find a scene of chaos. Tyler was arguing with security, waving papers. "It's a court order," he shouted. "She has to come with me." "What order?" Mr. Johnson arrived out of breath. Tyler showed the papers. The lawyer quickly examined them. "This is fake," he declared. "Forging a public document is a crime, young man." Tyler paled. "Fake, but my mom said." "Your mother lied to you too." Mr. Johnson was already calling the police. "I suggest you leave before you get arrested." The men fled, but the damage was done. Jessica had a severe anxiety attack and had to be sedated. "They won't give up," she murmured before falling asleep. "I'll never have peace." Michael held her hand until she slept. Then he left, determined. He called his contacts in journalism. "I need help. I have a story that needs to be told." The article came out 3 days later. Modern slavery. Young wheelchair user was forced to work by her own family. Michael's videos, edited to protect Jessica's identity, shocked the public. The backlash was immediate. Aunt Deborah and Tyler became outcasts in the neighborhood. Some who had supported them before now felt ashamed. Offers of help for Jessica multiplied, but she wasn't happy. "I didn't want this exposure," she told Michael. "Now everyone knows. They know you're a survivor, that you're strong. They know I was pathetic, that I let it happen." "Jessica," Michael gently held her face, "you didn't let anything happen. You were abused. It's not your fault." She began to cry and Michael hugged her. It was the first real hug she'd had in a long time. "I'm sorry," she pulled away. "I shouldn't." "Yes, you should. You need to relearn that you deserve affection, care, and kindness." Moving day arrived. Jessica was nervous and excited. The group home was welcoming, and the other residents greeted her warmly. "Welcome," said Emily, a young woman with cerebral palsy. "You'll love it here. We're a real family." Michael helped set up her room. It was simple but cozy. For the first time in a long time, Jessica would have a space of her own. "Thank you," she said, emotional, "for everything." "The journey is just beginning," Michael smiled, "but you're not alone anymore." The first weeks at the group home were a mix of liberation and challenge. Jessica had to relearn how to live without constant fear. Sometimes she'd wake up in a panic, thinking she had cars to wash. "It's normal," reassured Brian, the coordinator. "It takes time for your brain to understand you're safe." Sessions with Dr. Anderson intensified. Jessica began processing not just the months of abuse, but also the trauma of the accident and losing her parents. "You blame yourself for surviving," the psychologist observed. "They were so good," Jessica cried. "I'm nothing compared to them." "You're their daughter. You carry the best of them in you." The legal case against Aunt Deborah progressed. The evidence was overwhelming. Beyond forced labor and embezzlement, they discovered she had tried to forge documents to declare herself Jessica's permanent guardian. "She planned to declare you mentally incompetent," Mr. Johnson explained, "to get full access to the insurance." Jessica felt sick. How can someone be so cruel? Greed does terrible things to people. Michael continued to follow everything, but tried to give Jessica space to grow independently. It was she who took the initiative to sign up for the physical therapy entrance exam. "Even if I don't pass on the first try," she said determinedly, "I'll keep trying." "You'll pass," Michael was certain. "You're brilliant. You have so much faith in me, because I see who you really are." What Michael didn't know was that Aunt Deborah, desperate and furious, still had one last card to play. She found out where Jessica lived and began lurking around the shared house. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. One afternoon, as Jessica was returning from physical therapy, Aunt Deborah intercepted her at the entrance. "We need to talk," she said, blocking the way. Jessica froze, the old fear rushing back. "You can't be here." "The restraining order, Deborah spat the words. "You ruined my life. Tyler lost his job because of you." "I didn't." "Shut up," Deborah stepped forward. "You owe me. I took care of you, gave you everything." "You exploited me," Jessica found the strength to reply. "You treated me like a slave. Slave, you don't know what real work is. You've always been useless, just like your mother." The mention of her mother was too much. Jessica began trembling. "Don't talk about my mom. Your mother was a stupid dreamer. Thought she'd change the world by being a nurse. Died for nothing." "Enough!" Jessica screamed, tears streaming. "You're a monster. My mother was worth 1,000 times more than you." Deborah raised her hand as if to strike, but Brian appeared. "Step away from her now, or I'm calling the police." "This isn't over," Deborah hissed as she retreated. "You'll pay for everything." Jessica collapsed into Brian's arms, shaking violently. He took her inside and called Michael and Mr. Johnson. "She violated the order," the lawyer said furiously. "I'll request an arrest warrant." But the confrontation left Jessica shattered. The nightmares returned, worse than ever. She could barely leave her room. "It's like all my progress disappeared," she confessed to Michael. "It didn't. You stood up to her, Jessica. You spoke the truth. That's huge. But I'm so scared. Fear is normal. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it." Dr. Anderson suggested a different approach. "Jessica, how about writing? Getting everything you feel out on paper?" That's how Jessica started a journal. Not about the present, but memories of her parents, of happier times. It was painful but cathartic. One day she showed it to Michael. "My dad always said I'd go far," she read aloud, "that I had a special strength. I wish he were here." "He is," Michael said gently. "In you." The trial was approaching. Jessica would have to testify, face Aunt Deborah in court. The anxiety was paralyzing. "What if I freeze?" she asked Dr. Anderson. "We'll practice. Visualization, breathing. You're stronger than you think." Emily, her housemate, also helped. "When I testified against my abuser, I thought I'd die of fear, but you know what I learned? Speaking the truth sets you free." Jessica rehearsed her testimony with Mr. Johnson. Each time it got easier, the words flowing with more conviction. "You're ready," the lawyer declared. "You'll do great." The night before the trial, Michael took her out to dinner. Nothing fancy, just an affordable pizzeria she liked. "No matter what happens tomorrow," he said, "I want you to know how proud I am of you." "Michael," Jessica hesitated. "Why did you do all this, really?" He thought for a moment. At first it was just about justice, seeing someone exploited like that. But then, he met her eyes. "Then I saw your strength, your kindness, despite everything. So I saw someone special who deserved a chance. You changed my life. You changed mine too." There was something unspoken between them, but both knew now wasn't the time. Jessica needed to rebuild herself first, to discover who she was without the weight of abuse. The day of the trial arrived. The small courtroom was packed. Many had come to support Jessica after the news report. Aunt Deborah was there with her lawyer, shooting furious glances. When Jessica was called to testify, she had to take several deep breaths. Michael, sitting in the front row, gave her an encouraging nod. "Can you tell us what your daily routine was like in the defendant's home?" the prosecutor asked gently. Jessica started slowly, but soon the words poured out. She spoke about the endless chores, her bruised hands, the exhaustion. About the money she never saw, the threats, the emotional manipulation. "Deborah used to say I was a burden," her voice trembled, "that I should be grateful to have a roof over my head. But I paid for that roof with my sweat, my pain, my dignity." The defense attorney tried to discredit her. "Miss Jessica, isn't it true that the defendant took care of you after a terrible tragedy? She gave me shelter, yes, but she charged too high a price. Don't you think it's ungrateful to sue someone who took you in?" Jessica took a deep breath. "Ungrateful is exploiting someone vulnerable. Ungrateful is stealing a disabled person's benefits. Ungrateful is treating your own sister's daughter like a slave." The courtroom fell into deep silence. Even Aunt Deborah seemed shaken. The prosecutor presented the evidence, videos, bank statements, witness testimonies. It was undeniable. When Aunt Deborah was called to testify, she tried to play the victim. "I only wanted to help," she whined. "Jessica was always difficult, rebellious." "Did you charge her for her services?" the prosecutor asked. "It was to help with expenses." "But you kept all the money." "I had costs, food, adaptations. Can you provide receipts for those expenses?" Deborah stammered. She had no way to justify it. The verdict came 2 weeks later. Guilty of embezzlement, abuse, and forced labor. The sentence, 3 years in prison plus restitution of all the stolen funds. Jessica cried when she heard it, not out of joy, but relief. Finally, justice. Outside the courtroom, Tyler was waiting for her. Jessica tensed, but he raised his hands peacefully. "I just wanted to apologize," he said, ashamed. "I knew it was wrong, but she's my mother. I'm sorry, Jessica. You didn't deserve that." Jessica didn't know what to say. She gave a slight nod, and Tyler walked away, head down. "How do you feel?" Michael asked. "Empty," she admitted. "I thought I'd feel victorious, but I just feel hollow." "That's normal. You fought so hard for this that now you don't know what to do. And now you live. Truly. The me." Following weeks were about adjustment. With the returned money, Jessica could focus entirely on her studies. She passed the entrance exam for physical therapy, fulfilling a long-held dream. "My parents would have been so proud," she said on enrollment day. "They are." Michael walked beside her. "I'm sure of it." College brought new challenges. Some, professors doubted her abilities. Classmates looked at her with pity or curiosity. But Jessica persevered. "I'll prove I can do this," she said firmly. And she did. Her grades were excellent, her dedication impressive. Professor Wilson, initially skeptical, became her mentor. "You have a unique understanding of physical therapy," she said, "because you live it every day." Jessica also started volunteering, visiting young people who had recently been in accidents. "I know it feels like the end of the world," she told them, "but it's just a new way of living." Her story inspired. It wasn't just about overcoming disability, but about overcoming abuse, trauma, hopelessness. Michael remained present, but now more as a friend. Both knew there was something special between them, but Jessica needed time. "You mean too much to me," she explained. "I don't want to ruin this by not being ready." "I'll wait," Michael replied simply, "however long it takes." A year passed. Jessica was in her second year of college, living independently, building her life. Aunt Deborah was serving her sentence, her appeals denied. One afternoon, Jessica received a letter. It was from Deborah, from prison. She hesitated before opening it. "Jessica, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. Prison has given me time to think. I was wrong, blinded by greed. Your mother would be ashamed of me. I'm so sorry." Jessica read it over and over. She showed it to Dr. Anderson during therapy. "How do you feel about this?" "Confused. Part of me wants to believe she's changed. Another part thinks it's manipulation. Both could be true. People are complex. The important thing is, do you need her forgiveness, or do you need to forgive her? Jessica reflected deeply. She decided not to reply to the letter, but worked internally on forgiveness. Not for Deborah, but for herself. "I forgive you," she said aloud one day, alone. "I don't forget, but I forgive." It was liberating. Life moved on. Jessica excelled in college, made true friends, and built a healthy routine. The shared house became a real home. 2 years. After the trial, something unexpected happened. Jessica was interning at a clinic when a new patient arrived, Aunt Deborah. She had been released for good behavior and had suffered a stroke. She needed physical therapy. Fate had a cruel sense of humor. "I can ask to switch," the supervisor offered. Jessica looked at her former aunt, now frail and scared. She didn't see the woman who had hurt her, but someone who needed help. "No," she decided, "I'll take her." It was the hardest session of her life. Deborah cried the whole time, begging for forgiveness repeatedly. Jessica stayed professional. "We're here for your rehabilitation," she said firmly. "Let's focus on that." Over the weeks, they established a strange relationship. Not familial, but human. Jessica learned that Tyler had distanced himself from his mother. Deborah was alone. "I deserve this," Deborah said one day. "I earned it." "No one deserves loneliness," Jessica replied, surprising them both. They didn't become close, but Jessica helped Deborah recover. It was her way of closing the cycle, proving to herself she had moved on. "You're extraordinary," Michael said when she told him. "I don't know if I could do it. 2 years ago I couldn't either. But I'm not that scared girl anymore." "No, you're not," he smiled. "You're an incredible woman." The moment lingered between them. 2 years of friendship, support, unspoken affection. Jessica took the initiative. "Michael, I think I'm ready." "Ready? To try us, if you still want to." He kissed her softly. A clear answer. "I've always wanted to. I was just waiting for you." Their relationship blossomed naturally. They already had a solid foundation of friendship, mutual respect, and admiration. Jessica graduated with honors. At the ceremony, she looked into the crowd, Michael, her housemates, Dr. Anderson, even some former neighbors who had made amends. They weren't her parents, but they were her chosen family. "This diploma is for you," she said in her speech. "For my parents who gave me strength. For everyone who believed when I didn't. And for all the Jessicas out there, you deserve more." She began working at a specialized rehabilitation clinic. Her patients adored her, inspired by her story and dedication. "You understand," they'd say. "You don't pity us, you empathize." 5 years after that first day Michael saw her washing cars, Jessica had a full life, her own adapted apartment, a successful career, a healthy relationship, true friendships. During a routine visit to Dr. Anderson, she reflected on her journey. "Sometimes I can't believe it's me," she confessed. "It feels like another life." "It is another life. You were reborn, Jessica. Not despite the tragedy, but through it. It hurts to think I had to suffer so much to get here. But you made it. How many don't?" It was true. Jessica began giving talks on disability, rights, on recognizing and reporting abuse. Your story saved others. Deborah appeared at one of those talks. She looked different, older, more humble. She listened quietly as Jessica told her story. Then she approached. "Thank you," she said simply, "for letting me listen. For everything." Jessica nodded. They weren't family, and they never would be again. But they were human, and that was enough. Jessica's life wasn't perfect. There were still hard days, physical and emotional pain. But she had survived the unthinkable. That night, at home with Michael, she looked out the window. There were no cars to wash, just the view of the city where she had rebuilt her life. "What are you thinking about?" Michael hugged her from behind. That the Jessica from 5 years ago wouldn't believe this Jessica. "I believed in you. From the very first day? Especially on the first day. I saw your strength even when you didn't." Jessica turned her wheelchair to face him. "You saved my life." "No," Michael knelt to meet her eye level. "You saved your life. I just opened the door. Then thank you, she kissed him, for opening the door. Months later, on an ordinary morning, Jessica woke up with a realization. She hadn't thought about cars or Aunt Deborah in weeks. The scars were still there, but they no longer defined her days. At work, she took on a new patient, a young man recently injured, angry, and hopeless. "It's no use," he said. "My life is over." Jessica positioned herself, making her wheelchair clear. "My life truly began after this," she pointed to her legs. "It wasn't easy, it wasn't pretty, but it happened. It'll happen for you too." "How can you be sure?" "Because you're here, fighting, even if you don't realize it. That's already the beginning." She worked with him for months, watching him progress not just physically but emotionally. It was her purpose, to turn her pain into healing for others. One day, Mr. Johnson called with news. "Jessica, remember your parents' insurance? It's finally been released. With interest and adjustments, it's a considerable amount." Jessica listened to the figure, stunned. It was more than she'd imagined. "What will you do with it?" Michael asked. She didn't hesitate. "Start a foundation for young people with disabilities in vulnerable situations, so no Jessica has to wash cars to survive." The Hope Foundation was born 6 months later. It offered temporary shelter, legal support, counseling, and job training for people with disabilities who were victims of abuse or abandonment. At the inauguration, Jessica spoke emotionally. This foundation was born from pain, but it exists to create hope. To tell everyone who comes here, you're worth more than what they made you believe. The work was hard, but rewarding. Every story of resilience fueled Jessica's purpose. 2 years later, the foundation was helping dozens. Jessica split her time between the clinic and management, always with Michael by her side. One quiet afternoon, he surprised her. "Marry me?" Jessica laughed. "Just like that, out of nowhere?" "It's not out of nowhere. It's 7 years of love, overcoming partnership. Marry me, Jessica." "Yes," she didn't hesitate. 1,000 times yes. The wedding was simple but moving. Brian was the best man, Emily the maid of honor. Dr. Anderson officiated the civil ceremony. Even Tyler showed up, distant but present, perhaps representing a forgiveness in progress. In her speech, Jessica said, "Michael showed me I deserved love when I thought I only deserved work. He showed me my limitations didn't limit my worth. For that and 1,000 other reasons, I choose him every day." Life went on, with the normal challenges any couple faces. They argued over silly things and made up with tenderness. They built a home that was adapted but above all, welcoming. Jessica became a leading voice in physical therapy for people with disabilities. She published articles, gave lectures at universities, but her greatest pride remained the foundation. 5 years after its opening, it was helping hundreds. Stories of transformation multiplied. Jessica knew each one. "You remember every single one," Michael observed. "How could I forget? Each one reminds me why I do this." One of those stories was Ashley, 19 years old, paraplegic, who had run away from a family that kept her locked away. She arrived at the foundation malnourished and hopeless. "I don't know how to do anything," she'd say. "I'm just a burden." Jessica saw herself in those words. "Then we'll figure out together what you can do." They discovered Ashley had a talent for coding. The foundation arranged for courses and adaptive equipment. 2 years later, she was working at a tech company. "You gave me my life back," Ashley said the day she left the foundation for her own apartment. "No," Jessica corrected. "You always had life. You just needed to remember it. These victories made up for the hard days, the cases they couldn't help, the bureaucracy, the lack of resources." At a board meeting, they discussed expansion. "We need a bigger facility," Jessica argued. "The demand grows every day." "The costs?" The treasurer hesitated. "I'll give more paid talks, seek more donations. These people need us." Michael, who volunteered, admired his wife's passion. "You never give up." "I've learned giving up isn't an option. Not when others depend on you." The expansion happened. The new facility had dormitories for 50 people, physical therapy rooms, occupational therapy, computer labs. It was a dream come true. At the grand opening, a surprise. Aunt Deborah showed up. She was clearly ill, more fragile. She approached hesitantly. "I came to give you this." She handed over an envelope. "It's not much, but I want to help." Jessica opened it. It was a sizable check. "Where did—" "I sold my house. I'm moving to a nursing home. I don't need much. I'd rather it go to good use." It was a full circle moment. Jessica accepted the donation. "Thank you. It'll help so many people. It's the least—" Deborah had tears in her eyes. "The least after everything." They didn't hug, didn't pretend there was full reconciliation, but there was peace finally. The years passed. Jessica and Michael tried to have children but found out they couldn't. The news was devastating at first. "Another thing I can't do," Jessica cried. "Hey, Michael," comforted her. "We can adopt or not have kids. What matters is we're together." They decided to adopt. They met Ethan, 8 years old, who wore a leg prosthesis after an accident. "No one wants me," he said at their first meeting. "I'm broken." Jessica and Michael exchanged a look. It was him. "You know," Jessica said, "I used to think that too, but I learned there are no broken people, just different ones." Ethan came home with them a week later. The adjustment had challenges, but love prevailed. "Mom," he said, "one day you're the best mom in the world." Why? "Because you understand. When it hurts, when it's hard, you understand." Jessica hugged her son, moved. Life had curious ways of healing old wounds. The foundation grew, becoming a national reference. Jessica was invited to consult on public policies. She turned down political positions, preferring hands-on work. "My place is here," she'd say, "with those who need me." At 35, Jessica received a Human Rights Award. In her speech, she reflected on her journey. 15 years ago, I washed cars. I thought that was all I deserved. Today, I know we all deserve dignity, respect, opportunity. My job is to make sure of that." Michael, Ethan, and dozens of people helped by the foundation applauded tearfully. That night at home, Jessica reflected with Michael. "Do you think my parents would be proud? I'm sure you turned tragedy into purpose." "It still hurts," she admitted. "The longing, the memories. It'll always hurt a little. But look what you've built from that pain." Ethan appeared at the door. "Mom, Dad, can I sleep with you? I had a nightmare." "Of course, son," they made room. As Ethan fell asleep between them, Jessica thought of all the nights she'd cried alone in Aunt Deborah's house. Now she had a family, a purpose, a full life. It wasn't the life she had planned at 20. It was better, forged in the fire of adversity, but shining like pure gold. The next day, she arrived at the foundation to meet a new resident, an 18-year-old girl in a wheelchair fleeing a situation of family exploitation. "They said I was a burden," the girl cried. "That I should be grateful to have a roof over my head." Jessica held her hands, seeing her own past reflected. "You are a treasure," she said firmly, "and we'll prove it together." The cycle continued. Every person saved went on to save others. The chain of kindness that Michael had started when he filmed Jessica on that fateful day multiplied endlessly. Years later, Ethan, now grown and a physical therapist like his mother, took over part of the foundation's management. "I learned from the best," he said proudly. Jessica, now 50, looked at the legacy they'd built with satisfaction. It wasn't just the foundation or her career. It was living proof that no one is condemned by their circumstances. Michael, always, by her side, remained her safe harbor. "No regrets?" he asked on one of their anniversaries. "Just one," Jessica smiled. "What?" "Not meeting you sooner. Imagine how much more we could have done together. We did what we were meant to when we were meant to," he kissed her. "And we still have so much ahead." The foundation opened branches in other cities. The model was replicated, studied, admired, but Jessica kept her feet on the ground. "Every victory is individual," she reminded her team. "Numbers matter, but people are unique." Aunt Deborah passed away in the nursing home years later. Jessica attended the funeral. Tyler was there now with a family of his own. "She talked about you," he said. "At the end, it was all about you. The pride, the regret." Jessica nodded. Complete forgiveness had come with time. She was human. She made mistakes, but she was human. "You're too kind." I learned holding on to bitterness only hurt me. She already paid for her mistakes. Life brought inevitable losses. Dr. Anderson retired, Mr. Johnson passed away. But it also brought gains, adopted grandchildren when Ethan married, the continued expansion of their social work. At 60, Jessica published her autobiography. Wheels and Wings told her full journey, sparing no painful details but focusing on overcoming. The book became a bestseller, inspiring even more people. All royalties went to the foundation. At the launch party, Jessica looked around. The room was full, former patients, foundation residents, professionals she'd inspired. "Each of you is part of this story," she said, moved. "You taught me that physical limitations don't define the spirit." Michael, now gray-haired but still in love, hugged her. "Proud of you, always." "We did it," she whispered, "against all odds." "You did it, I just opened the door." They finished together, laughing. Ethan took the stage. "I want to say something. My mother taught me that disability doesn't define a person, but more than that, she taught me love changes everything. She and my dad chose me when no one else would. So today, I'm announcing we're adopting too." Continuing. The cycle, Jessica cried. The legacy would live on. In her later years, Jessica slowed down but never stopped completely. She mentored young physical therapists, supervised the foundation, wrote articles. "Retirement," Michael suggested. "And do what?" "This is my life." "Our life," he corrected. "And what a life." On an ordinary afternoon, Jessica visited the foundation. A new resident approached her. "Ms. Jessica, I used to wash cars for my family. I saw your story online. That's why I ran away, why I'm here." Jessica held the young woman's hands, the circle complete once more. "You were brave. Now, let's build your future." As they talked, Jessica saw a car being washed outside the window. For a moment the memory stung, then she smiled. That frightened Jessica, washing cars, had become this Jessica. Strong, accomplished, a life changer. The trauma existed, it always would, but it no longer defined her. What defined her was every life transformed, every person who learned their own worth through her. That night, at home with Michael, Ethan, and the grandchildren, Jessica felt complete peace. The journey had been long, often painful, but absolutely worth it. "What are you thinking about?" Michael noticed her silence. "That it was worth it, all of it, every tear, every pain. Look how far we've come." "Together," he emphasized. "Together," she agreed. Outside, life went on. People suffered, struggled, overcame. Jessica knew her work would never truly end. There would always be someone needing to hear, "You are worth more than what they made you believe," and she would be there to say it, as many times as necessary. Because that was her mission, to turn pain into purpose, trauma into triumph. The girl who washed cars had become the woman who cleansed souls, and that, Jessica knew, was her true calling. End of story. Now tell us, what did you think of Jessica's journey? Do you believe forgiveness truly sets you free? We'd love to read your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for being here. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more inspiring stories.